The ATX DAO Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Tequila 512. Looking for a way to decentralize your happy hour? They got you covered. Welcome to the ATX DAO Podcast, the hub for exploring the forefront of blockchain technology in Austin's Web3 community. We connect you with innovators within ATX DAO and beyond as we venture into the world of decentralized technology. So crack open a beer and join us for a front row seat to learn about the innovations and trends shaping our digital future. This is the ATX DAO Podcast. Welcome to the show, guys. Glad to have you with us today, Vishnu. So Vishnu Kumar from Offchain Labs is with us today. Vishnu, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you in person.
Thanks for having me. Great to meet you, Luke, and Ash. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked that you're here. I mean, like, it's good to have someone from the DAO, and
Absolutely.
It's like vibes are fucking on point. Me and Vishnu met like by literally being bromance cuddling in Dallas
At the Bitcoin conference, North American Blockchain Association.
Yeah, it was my first, like, I guess DAO style trip with everybody, which was kind of cool. And it was a lot of fun, man. We met a lot of interesting people from the DAO there, and like just general.
Yeah,
like,
it's a blast. I literally slept on the DAO Airbnb on a mattress. So it was on a mattress, to clarify, air mattress, I think, but it was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
Remind me of the call.
Exactly. It really did feel like a frat house. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had FOMO about not being able to go to that. I think that was actually around the time we started the podcast. I think we had recorded our first episode, but we hadn't released it yet. So listeners, if you've been listening to the pod for a while, that's right at the inception. So
yeah, it was good, man. It was good. But
Killer dinner too. We had like this crazy steak dinner. Man, that was bomb.
Yeah, Del Frisco's, right?
Yeah.
I bet they were like, I don't even want the tip, just please leave. You're killing the ambiance for everyone else here. But you guys are like being the most fun table in the entire fucking restaurant.
Yeah, it was a blast. And after there was like a happy hour thing or like a drinks thing, and then I spilled like my entire martini on Nick Carter's blazer.
that is awesome. So yeah, I definitely have the FOMO about these conferences. Ash is always trying to get me to go to conferences. Actually, I'm going to one next week, but it's not one Ash is going to, unfortunately. But yeah, no, they have Lunch Summit. It'll be in London, so I'm going to get to go to that one. But was supposed to be at Consensus this week and just couldn't swing both of them. But
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there's too many conferences. You have to pick and choose. You got to be strategic for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, man. But I'm excited for him. It'll literally be your first Web3 conference, right?
Oh,
no, I've been to Consensus here. I've been to Permissionless and those kinds of things. My first traveling one.
Okay, yeah.
The traveling is tough, but like it's so fun in the beginning, and then after it becomes your job, then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
But it's always good for leads, generally.
Yeah.
Generally.
And that trip back is the worst trip back, especially if you've been partying like hard. You're just like, fuck. Just like I have a hangover. I'm like 30,000 feet in the air and this metal tin can with people who are like breathing super heavy.
Right.
And you're just like, oh God. People can smell the death on you. And it's like, dear God. But you're going to have a lot of fun.
The thing that kills me every single time, though, the biggest killer of conferences for me is getting COVID almost every single time. I went to Eat Denver in February, and then I literally was the only dude with the mask on the whole time. And like everyone looked at me like I was crazy, but I didn't get COVID. So that's a win. I think a lot of people did.
Yeah. The one thing that I learned actually is from Philip from the DAO, right? And he was saying, he's like, apparently, so you got to like do the neti pot for your nose or whatever. He's like, apparently what it does is like it builds up the viral load in your nose. So he's like, every single night what he would do is that he would go back, no matter how shit-faced he is or how sober he is, he's like, I would neti pot. And he's like, if I neti pot every night, that way I never get sick. He's like, I just run around all day long, and he's like, it's perfectly fine. So that's the secret thing that he did. I tried it a few times and I'm like, holy shit, it's actually true.
Okay.
This shit works.
Yeah.
I actually carry one of those things now. It's like, I feel like I'm a 70-year-old man carrying this around. Yeah. But like, I'm like, yo, I'm going hard in the paint every single day. And it's like the next day I still feel fresh.
I agree. Yeah. So wait, what does it do exactly?
So apparently your infection and all that. So there's like this threshold that apparently hits where your white blood cells kick in to be like, hey, we need to have an all hands meeting because there's something fucking going on in this body. And we need to like start sending the white blood cells everywhere. Just, I don't know where the fuck we're sending them. We just send them everywhere. Right. And that's when you're just like, oh shit, I just generally feel sick. And you kind of like sneaks in on you. But apparently, so what he was telling me is like viral load builds up in your sinuses. So by cleaning out your sinuses, it actually allows for you to like break down whatever the bacteria is there.
Got it.
So you don't have to actually go into that white blood cell mode where it's like all hands meeting.
Right.
And apparently that helps a lot because like a lot of it is like just viral, right?
Yeah.
If you really think about it,
Right.
it's just like you're just shaking hands with people all day, having drinks, running around. The weather's all kind of wild. So apparently this creates like a better, healthy environment to get rid of that stuff. So your immune system is still like, okay, I don't have to like massive attack everything.
Yeah. I'm going to steal that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's, I feel like everyone in crypto needs like their bag of tools for conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and by the way, so on the neti pods, so I'm a big fan of them as well. So if you have allergies, it's really good for that also because it kind of clears out all the pollen or whatever is in there.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend has warned me. So my girlfriend's a nurse, so I get all the medical advice. And so definitely use distilled water for that. So she's very afraid of us getting brain amoebas, which she runs the neuro ICU at Del Seaton. So she like knows about brain amoebas. So I was like, all right, no brain amoebas. So distilled water and you're good.
Bro, brain amoebas sound cool, man. Look at RFK. He runs the fucking Department of Health, bro. He gets one brain worm. Next thing you know, he's in the fucking like highway, like the fast lane for running the country's health department.
That's the way to make it up in this world.
Yeah,
Very
dude.
true. But I mean, I don't have Kennedy in my last name.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's true.
That
Yeah.
probably,
That hurts.
Or a kick-ass falcon, right?
it's right. That's
Right. You know what I'm talking about, the falcon thing, right? Dude, he has this obsession with falconry.
Who?
RFK. So apparently in college, like ever since he was a young kid, so his dad, even Bobby Kennedy, he was like, hey, like I'll spoil you with whatever you want, right? So apparently he was like, I love animals. Falcons seem pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
So he's like actively involved in falconry, like to this day.
Okay.
So apparently from when he was a kid, all the way when he was in college, you'd go to like RFK's like college like dorm room, and it would just be bird shit, like all fucking
He had a
over the
falcon
place.
in his dorm room.
Because it was a fucking falcon in the dorm room. He like used to ride around with his falcon and go hunt fucking mices and shit like that. And there's this like hilarious story where it's like he got pulled over by a cop once, and he's like, you better not fucking pull me over because this falcon's trained to attack cops. This fucking falcon attacked this cop.
Sick 'em.
Yeah, it was the wildest thing. Yeah, brainworms and falconry.
I feel like he has some wild stories just in general. And I promise we'll start to talk about Arbitrum as well.
Oh,
I just
yeah,
have to
yeah,
share
yeah.
this
Take your time.
one part. But have you heard the thing about him and the bear in Central Park?
No.
So apparently when he was in his younger years, he found a dead bear on the side of the road. Or maybe they hit it. I don't know what happened. And he put it in his car and thought, wouldn't this be hilarious if I just put this dead bear in Central Park and like pretended that it was like there. And so he put it there and like the whole city freaked out. Like there's bears in Central Park. And so like it's this whole thing that like came up in him like when they were doing all of his background checks and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, I totally did that.
That's awesome.
Only he could get away with that.
That's fucking awesome. That's a great prank, actually, if you think
that's
about it,
brilliant.
right?
Yeah. Hopefully it's not illegal.
That's
Right.
like he was like pre-crypto founder. That's like something like you would definitely do, like bear chain,
Found
dead
a-
bear in like the middle of Central
That's
Park.
how you do marketing for a bear chain.
Yeah, exactly. You release the bears in Central Park and be like, that's it. You
The
know.
bears are in Central Park, guys.
But this is awesome, man. Want to hear more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, should I just tell you guys about how I got into crypto?
Tell
a
me
bit, or-
exactly where you were born,
Okay.
the timing,
Birthday.
what'd you have for breakfast this
Grandmother's
morning?
maiden name.
Yeah, last bowel movement, everything, Social Security, everything. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So basically, the TLDR, I'll give you like the lowdown on the life. Basically, born and raised in Silicon Valley, California. Was one of those fucking Californians that moved here during COVID to Austin. But in my defense, my wife is from Texas and native Texan, and actually, her family owns like Boggy Creek Farm, which is like a historical landmark in Austin, and Sam Houston used to eat there, and it's like super OG shit. It's the oldest house in Austin that's actually still used as a farm.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's pretty OG. So it kind of evens out my Californianess. But anyway, grew up there. Was always in tech. Like both my parents were in tech. My parents came from India in like the 80s, and kind of grew up in San Francisco Bay Area. Studied computer science at Berkeley. Kind of did that whole thing, but that was like my first exposure to crypto. Was one of my buddies, Max. He started blockchain at Berkeley, which is like one of the blockchain clubs, which it's a pretty big one. I think it was one of the early ones. Basically, went to him and I was like, "Oh, how do I get Bitcoin?" And he showed me that. And at the time, it was just for getting fake IDs and stuff like that. So it was really cool to have that exposure to Bitcoin, but really it was never really part of my orbit. Kind of went down the crypto rabbit hole later on when a lot of my buddies were trading coins like Ripple and stuff, which were really big back then, Litecoin, Doge. But I never really was like super into the speculative stuff. I was just like, I don't know, focused on doing good in school. Like, but
how Asian of you?
So did that, but it was super fun, being there and kind of being around it. I have a couple buddies who like made a ton of money off Bitcoin. I have this one buddy, I won't drop his name, but he has like the best luck. He was like, his dad is like super famous or super successful international real estate developer, and like owns a bunch of properties across the Bay Area and internationally. And then he was like he had this photography business growing up, and he would take photos of people for like graduation, stuff like that, post on Instagram early days. And then he got paid in Bitcoin by a client, and it was like a ton of Bitcoin at the time, and he just held on to it and it fucking pumped, and he ended up making like a bunch of money off it, like I would say like low 7 figures maybe.
Yeah.
And then he put it into like Tesla, and then he like went and bought like real estate in SF and kind of diversified. And
that's smart.
But anyway, hilarious. He's a hilarious dude. I love him a lot. But it was just like two of the best trades of all time. Exactly. He just fell into them.
It's better to be lucky than smart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all the smart dumbasses are out here like just still poor.
It's like the lower your bank account, the higher your IQ.
It's an inverse correlation.
Exactly.
There. So basically grew up there in the Bay, and then kind of went into tech, working in like cloud platform stuff. Like I worked at this company called Pivotal on the product side, where we were helping apps deploy across different clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, that kind of thing. It was cool. But I just thought it was super boring because like my dad, that was like the type of stuff my dad and his friends would do.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to find something sexier, like being like a 22-year-old working in tech in San Francisco. And so that was cool. Kind of went down like the social consumer rabbit hole, and then like really got inspired by the creator economy and started doing a startup around helping creators connect with their fans in person through events. That was actually pretty cool. Was working in SF in LA. Did a bunch of events for a bunch of different creators, but then COVID hit, and then the whole event scene just dried up like in a snap. After that kind of brought me into crypto. Was just super interested in DeFi summer, but was kind of sitting on the sidelines, unfortunately. Otherwise, I probably would be much richer. After DeFi summer, got through into the DAO scene. Was ATX DAO was a big one at the time. Friends of Benefits DAO was another big one. ATX DAO and Friends of Benefits DAO had like a bunch of overlap. Like I remember before ATX DAO was even a DAO, I met up with like Jesse, Reality Crafter, and a few other folks, and we were all like just like off. It was like the ATX DAO off. It was like ATX offshoot of Friends of Benefits. So that's kind of like how we ended up meeting, and then it was like the Genesis class, and basically ATX DAO has grown a ton from there, and it's been super cool to see like how the community has grown, and there's been all these amazing initiatives like the podcasts have come out of it. And I think I honestly, like, a lot of people love to shit on DAOs, but I think ATX DAO is actually like a great shining example of DAOs in practice. I think a lot of people thought DAOs would eat the world and like everything would be a DAO. I don't really think that makes a lot of sense, but I do think like community use cases and like having like a shared treasury and a shared vision and having like a bunch of pulling in decentralized contributions for something that is not like, oh, I need to build a top-down product makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like the DAO has been, I feel like the DAO has been this unique, eclectic group of people that are coming in, and it's like so many different vehicles and like avenues of like thought has come out of it. Like the pod is great, right? Like, and also just like having this network of like different builders and investors and like networkers and like recruiters is awesome. Like, I feel like it's like, you're almost at like a startup incubator or an accelerator where you can just like bounce a million ideas off of people. And then you'd be like, oh, you can get funding from here. And oh, okay, this person's hiring. You should go work over there. Or like they're recruiting over here. You can help me recruit some people. Like it's, you can like speed run shit like way quicker.
Absolutely. I think that DAO helped me dive deep into crypto like quite fast. ATX DAO was a big one, of course. Friends of Benefits DAO, and then another one I was working on was Gitcoin DAO. So I joined the space as a product manager, Unstoppable Domains, which is like the ENS competitor, Pantera company. Really cool. Like team there's great. Worked with Matt and Michael, head of product. Matt the CEO, Ryan like the first engineer. We actually went to high school together. So basically joined that team, was working as the dev tools integrations PM, and mostly worked on like sex integrations at the time, which was great, honestly, a great like intro into the space. From there, like at the same time, I was helping out, Friends with Benefits DAO scene was like ripping at the time, and was helping out all these different DAOs, ATX DAO, Friends with Benefits DAO, Gitcoin DAO. Gitcoin, like the co-founder Scott Moore just reached out to me on Twitter because I was shit posting about all the Friends with Benefits work I was doing. And then he was like, oh, come contribute to Gitcoin DAO. And I was like, okay, bet. Like, this is actually pretty cool, like public goods and like actually doing something regenerative with crypto. The thing that, some helpful context here, is the thing that brought me into crypto initially was like the idea of programmable money, and like programming money to be used to incentivize like new behaviors that humans normally wouldn't do, right?
Yeah.
And like I have like a bit of a public interest background. Like my wife is a public interest lawyer, and my aunt, she was like nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize like back in the day, for some AIDS work. She has like an AIDS nonprofit in India, and that always kind of gave me this little like, I don't know, focus on figuring out how to create value for folks who maybe didn't really have that much value, or solve problems on like a global scale in some way. And what, like I thought crypto was really interesting because like you could see like the free rider problem of like global warming, for example, right? Like the US, China, India, they all like benefit from global warming, so they're not really incentivized to solve it. But like we as the citizens of all these countries are the ones that are paying the price. And so the thing that really nerd sniped me and really like hooked me into crypto was like, oh, what if you could create like a decentralized protocol where you could incentivize people to do the right shit, and like you could pay them if they like recycle or whatever. Then like a simple example, right? And you could scale that up to whatever level you'd want to. And so the idea of programmable money really like hooked me into it. So that was like a natural segue for me to work at Gitcoin, which is all like, public goods related. So was just helping out at the time, sort of just shit posting. And the thing that was cool was the co-founder Scott, insane networker, probably one of the best networkers I've seen in crypto. And it was really amazing because he helped me bootstrap my network a lot, and I learned a lot from him there. But basically, while I was unstoppable, I would moonlight as like basically helping fund public goods on Discord and Gitcoin Discord, and was shit posting and shilling people on like funding public goods. And I didn't really see it as BD or like partnerships at the time, but that's kind of what it was. And essentially, I just thought it was like, there's all these like crypto influencers. He was really good at like bringing in relevant people from the space to like work on this stuff. And, there's people like Vitalik and like a bunch of influencers and stuff like that who are like helping out here. And I was like, oh, this is a cool way for me to like interact with these folks and like become friends with them. And I just thought that's what it was. It's like becoming friends with them and like working together. Turns out that I was actually doing BD this whole time.
We've been sneak grooming you for like a BD for like Gitcoin, basically.
So they groomed me for partnerships basically. And eventually, once I closed a couple big deals, Scott was like, oh, do you actually want to come to Gitcoin full time and help me build out this partnerships team? And I was like, yeah, at the time, I was more on the engineering side, working on product. And this was kind of like a strategic shift where I was working more on like strategy and partnerships generally, which was awesome. I think for me that the thing that really sold me was Naval Ravikant. If you guys know him, he's like the tech philosopher. AngelList, exactly. Yeah. So he says like, do the thing that feels like play to you and work to others. And to me, I was like, just chatting with people. I was always outgoing, and the partnerships thing, I was just closing these deals, like not really trying. So I was like, oh, I should like explore this at the very least, right? What's the worst that can happen? Sort of went down the rabbit hole there and, helped Gitcoin grow to massive volumes. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but we had like Gitcoin grants 11 to like 16 were like some of the biggest in history. And then they had like a bunch of different things that we funded, like longevity research, like ZK, ETH infra, all sorts of stuff, social consumer infra. What else? We even did like regen and like green crypto projects, all sorts of wild shit. It was cool, but it was all regenerative and it was cool. A lot of cool projects came out of it. Like, of course, like the big hitters like Uniswap, Tornado Cash, 1inch. What else? A bunch. WagMe, Hooks. Yeah, like basically a ton of ETH infra, Hard Hat. Yeah, they all came out of Gitcoin in some capacity or another. So I got a bunch of exposure to like sick early stage projects there, and working with some of the best builders across the space, working with like the Ethereum Foundation, working with like Beta DAO and all these like really domain experts in each of these fields, kind of allowed me to speed run learning crypto in some ways. I was still like had no idea for the most part like what I was doing, but was able to jump in and add value where I could.
No, it almost feels like you took on this like VC, DD, and like allocation role, right? Because you're like seeing so many things like come in. Like VitaDAO to Uniswap is a huge fucking shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one of them is like talking about, if I remember VitaDAO, they were like kind of like Molecule. They were like,
Molecule came out of them.
Yeah, so they were like trying to be like, oh, let me repurpose like this IP for pharma, and then we can get it out here. And then there's Uniswap, which is like basically like it allows you to swap assets. And 1inch, which is like aggregation. That's a huge like quantum leap of difference. So it's like you're seeing deal flow in a lot of these things. That's fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. Another one that was notable was Optimism. We worked really close to Optimism.
Oh wow, I didn't know Optimism came out of the Gitcoin
Plasma group. Yeah, they were the Plasma group before Optimism.
Oh
they were like all about Plasma and state channels, and then they went over to optimistic rollups. But that's kind of the lore. But anyway, it was cool. I got to see like the full spectrum of things. Just kind of fell into it. And then after that, like so I was leading this work stream at Gitcoin, which was awesome. But then it was a DAO, unfortunately. And in ATX DAO's case, that's unfortunately, but in Gitcoin DAO's case, the governance structure was extremely complicated. We had like these stewards that were mostly checked out, I would say. And then you had like folks like me, the operators on the ground that were leading the teams, and we were like, trying to BD and trying to build product and trying to market the product and basically do growth for the protocol. And it was just tough because every quarter as the team lead, I had to every season, like especially as the markets got bad, like there was way more and more scrutiny on the budgets, and like half my job became going to the governance forums and like basically defending my team's budget. And like we had a bunch of killers on this team, right? Like Drew Kaufman from Base, Sarah Drinkwater, who runs like her own VC fund now, Azim Khan, who's like the co-founder of the new Maiden project.
I thought it was Morpho, right?
No, he was in Morph L2.
Ah, okay, all right,
Morph
cool.
L2.
Yeah.
So all these folks were on my team, and we had a stacked group. But it was tough. It's hard to keep stacked talent when every quarter you have to basically beg for a budget, and like there's a bunch of like instability as to like, oh, am I going to have a job in 3 months? Yeah. It kind of became this thing where I was like, okay, this is like half my job. This is like not what I should be working on. I should be working on like real shit. Yeah. Not like going to the governance forum and like. It felt like high school debate to me a little bit, which I did. So I was like, I don't want to go back to that. Right. So basically after that, kind of left, went to go work on my own project, which is like public goods focused. It was really cool. It was a really indie project. Yeah. It was called Permet. It used to be called Hibiscus DAO originally, but I started it with Jeremy Carl, who's like the co-founder of Arc'teryx System A. If you guys know Arc'teryx, it's like the ski brand. Basically, he did like the streetwear line under that. He's super well respected in industry. He runs like this OG fashion blog called TechSpec, and he's like one of the dudes that push. But if you see like all the tech wear that Drake and Kanye and Travis Scott and stuff like that were wearing, like a lot of the influence traces back to him actually. And he has like this crazy consulting firm. Anyway, worked with him. He's like brilliant at crypto. Like you would never think it, but this dude's like super crypto pilled. Okay. And he was really interested in using crypto to essentially tokenize the garment supply chain, because there's a bunch of problems in the supply chain. Is the fact that there's a bunch of slave labor, child labor, environmental impacts and stuff like that. That's one side of it.
You've not told me any other problem. You've not mentioned a single problem.
Yeah. Who cares, right?
No. I mean, we need to get kids need jobs too. Sorry.
If you guys don't know Ash, this is par for the course.
Yeah, exactly. We're just steeping into lower levels of like the 7 layers of Dante's hell. Yeah. Exactly. And then there's Ash at the bottom being like, "Hey guys,
come join me." Yeah. So basically, was working on that, and so one side was like kind of like all like the supply chain problems. The other side is like the IP side, which is that some of these designers, they're the most specialized, like the best designers in the world, working at like the biggest brands like Balenciaga, Supreme, XYZ. All of these folks, they probably make like a couple $100K max, and then they have zero like equity in the company. Yeah, like nothing like that. Us in startup world, we're used to getting like basis points, stuff like that on the companies we work on, but that's not the case at all in most industries, and fashion is one of them. So, and essentially we were tokenizing the IP so that way they can join like the creator economy and have ownership over their IP and essentially be able to earn on residuals or other ways other than just trading the time for money. Really cool project. We did like the first on-chain garment collection. We're featured in like Forbes and GQ and like a bunch of other fashion mags, but It was amazing. I think what I realized is like at the time, like L2s weren't that big and like landscape was still developing a bit. It was challenging to work with these folks who honestly, like in a lot of ways, didn't really care about wealth. Like the primary currency was like status. So they were like, oh, is this cool? Does this make me cooler or not cooler? And for a lot of them, like this crypto shit was just like not cooler. So that was an interesting balance. It was like it's almost like the Naval thing, like seek wealth, not status. Yeah. And I think like in this industry, like the currency is status, and a lot of times can parlay that into wealth sometimes. You know, I think this is changing, but I think that's kind of like where things are. And you know, even though a lot of these people have a lot of nice clothes, a lot of them are spending all their money on these clothes. Like they don't really have that much disposable income. So it's kind of a crazy world, the fashion world. So I went into the world and I was like, wow, is this like long-term where I want to be? And I was like, I love fashion, but maybe this isn't like the most lucrative business environment. And so and then this was kind of at the time where, you know, crypto had like this really bad bear market. It had just passed the bear market and ETH had hit like $800 like, you know, a few months ago. And after a while I was just like, what, like I had to like reevaluate crypto. Yeah. As a whole. I was like, okay, like, is this where I should be allocating my time? And I think I was like, I wasn't ready to give up on crypto altogether. I was like, okay, like there's still something here, but what is that something? And for me, that thing was DeFi, like decentralized finance, building on-chain finance. And I think that was like the meat of like what crypto is.
So to like mark off this era, this is like when Kanye was actually still married to Kim, right? Like you're like switching out. This is pre-Nazi Kanye.
Yes, this is pre-Nazi
like,
Kanye.
Basically, you were leaving the fashion game, and like he was still married to Kim, and then shit was unraveling. This is when he was going on his Jesus tour or whatever.
Jesus tour was a long time ago.
No,
that was in like 2016, 2017.
Oh, damn.
Are you talking about the Jesus is King tour?
No, the Yeezus tour, where he's like basically so it's like 2022, 2023, those albums came out or whatever. This is like when he's still married to Kim. And then after that, you leave and then you basically go on to your next journey. And then Kanye's like, you know, Vishnu's out of the fashion game. Boom, straight into anti-Semitism.
So I just have to ask, like, do you mark time based off Kanye's?
Kanye's my temporal prophet.
A lot of people do like where they were in school at the time, but it's like at this point, it's just like, what is Kanye doing? Now I know what was.
I mark time through Kanye albums. That's basically it.
That's actually somewhat fair. I get the albums. The Kanye eras are wild. They really took a turn for the left.
Yes, exactly.
It's hard. I used to be the biggest Kanye fan. Now it's like you can't be a fan of him in public anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's Michael Jackson. Like you gotta listen to that shit in private. That shit is not okay.
The AirPods are on.
Yeah, even Diddy and shit like that. You're like, I can't listen to Diddy anymore. All that shit is gone. But no, I mean, like I think I just realized when you were talking about Hibiscus DAO, that's when I met you. I met you at Jesse's barbecue at his place, him and his brother's place.
Yep.
And you were talking about like doing on-chain provenance and like tracking of the supply chain for denim. And I was like, holy shit, that is actually kind of like a crazy, interesting idea.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I think now we're seeing a bit more in this space. Like people are now tokenizing whiskey and like, I think it's sort of getting there. I think we were super early and I think this will eventually happen in some way or another. Yeah. It's hard being early. It's hard being early. It's almost as bad as being late, but maybe worse.
Yeah.
I think whiskey is definitely a big one for that too. So I'm a little bit of a bourbon geek. So I like went way down the rabbit hole during COVID. I bought like this crazy collection of bourbons and stuff. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity there, both in the barrels and then also in just the bottles too. So I think there's definitely something coming to that.
Yeah. I heard I was chatting with someone today and he said he bought his first on-chain whiskey. So that's awesome. Like, that's crazy. People are buying products now.
Yeah, I think when I went to Breakpoint in Singapore, and they had like one of those whiskey things that was like from a distillery, and it was like you could buy it with Sol, and they were like an on-chain kind of thing or something. I didn't really dig deep into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you spin that up in AVAX, right? You should, like Whiskey DAO in like literally AVAX as a subnet.
Maybe so. So all the legal side of things is going to be the challenge. The tokenization part is surprisingly the easy part.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely something there for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. So anyway, to wrap the story, after kind of like having this coming to Jesus moment of like, oh, what should I do with crypto? I went back to the drawing board, was like, okay, DeFi is where it's at from that thesis, I was like, okay, where's the best place to be in DeFi? And Arbitrum was kind of at the top of that list, and basically knew a bunch of folks from Arbitrum from the Gitcoin days. And it was a pretty natural fit. They were looking for someone to lead the strategy and go to market for Arbitrum Orbit, like the chains. And I had a bunch of experience working on L2 stuff from Gitcoin to some degree, and from Unstoppable Domains. And it was a good fit, basically. Like, and also the product background, which was on my team. Like we have a crack partnerships team. I don't know if you guys know Icebergy. He's like a crypto influencer. Basically, he just joined our team this week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He'll do great. But basically the team is organized by everyone's on a vertical. Like everyone's working on Arbitrum One, like gaming, DeFi, TradFi, Fintech, etc. But I'm like the only one who's working across a product. So it's kind of like a horizontal role. And I look at like all the different verticals within that. So it's kind of similar to what you were saying earlier, Ash, about like the VC, like speed running the VC, the same thing at Gitcoin, where it's like, oh, you're going to see Uniswap. And
you could watch everything at the same time. You get like a bird's eye view, but at the same time, you're in the trenches, like seeing what the details are in each respective vertical, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was really cool, and it still is cool. Yeah, I still work there. But it's amazing to get exposure to all these different sick projects, and I feel like I'm definitely like to be at the cutting edge of like what is happening. I think that Arbitrum's like sort of been making a comeback on the chain side. You know, so last year was Solana's year. I think this year was also partially Solana's year. Like the meme coin run up was insane, unmatched. Like we've never seen anything like it, really.
Yes, yeah.
It really reminded me of like the ICO boom plus like the NFT craze combined. But I think now like Arbitrum is like we like never ever played the meme coin game ever. Like we totally sat that whole shit out. Yeah. Like and I think the thing is that like the thing about Arbitrum, the thing that drew me to Arbitrum is like, for me, I really suck in a lot of ways at like chasing like the flavor of the week in crypto. And there's a lot of different flavors out there. For me, like the type of dude that like, I can't be on Twitter all day. Like I need to like block out deep work slots. Like, you know, I need to like really be in there and like kind of like go deep on things. For at least that's the way my brain works. And for me, like I not a lot of places were like playing like a 10-year game. You know what I mean? Like no one's like thinking about Web3 the same way as Web2 in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think Arbitrum is doing that, but like I think it's because the founders, right? Because the founders are Stephen Goldfeder. He like wrote one of the most popular textbooks on Bitcoin. The main co-founder, Stephen's a CEO, but like one of the OG co-founders is Ed Felton, and he ran.
He's
like,
brilliant.
He's super smart, and he ran like the Princeton computer science department for the longest time. He worked at the White House under Obama as like the deputy CTO for a long time, and he's like very involved in just pushing the industry forward, I think. So really cool guy. And then Harry is like the other co-founder who Stephen and Harry were both in Ed's class, and that's when they first sketched out like the designs for Arbitrum, even before Ethereum mainnet was live. So they kind of saw that there was going to be like the blockchain trilemma and like there's going to be scalability issues. So they're like, oh, how do we do this? Initially, like Plasma was part of that. Yeah. State channels were part of that exploration. And then they decided on optimistic rollup was the best. And basically, that's where we are now. Of course, you know, ZK, there's a lot of hype around ZK. I think we think ZK is great. We're like exploring it. But I think right now, optimistic rollups are probably the best solution for most teams. Mm-hmm. But the crypto world's constantly changing.
So brief story about Ed. It's like, you know, so in crypto, you meet a lot of people, right? And like I met Ed at Stanford's campus, just passing. I was on the way to go and meet a friend of mine, and he was there. We were all at SBC together. And I just bumped into him, and I just was like, hey, just wanted to say hi or whatever. He was chatting with someone else about something. This is like roughly around 2.5 years ago. So Arbitrum was just starting to begin, right? Like OP rollups were just happening. Optimism wasn't the big thing that was really there. Arbitrum was there. And I was listening to him talk, and I was like, holy shit. Like there's very few moments where you meet people and you're like, wow, this guy's fucking smart. And I didn't know anything about the CTO and the Obama administration and anything like that. But I would just like, I walked away. I was like, hey, I got to go to my meeting real quick. But like, I walked away thinking, I was like, wow, this guy is genuinely fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. A sound technical mind and the ability to articulate it in a way that like anyone can dog food this. It is rare to see those kinds of two packages together. Those are very rare kind of founder traits or just individual traits. He is really smart. Getting a conversation with him, it would be fantastic at any point. if anyone is there, you should go walk up and talk to this guy. And he's surprisingly approachable.
He's super approachable. He's super nice. I bet I been to conferences with him, chatted with him. He's always on BD calls with B2 when he's down to BD. Like he does not care. He's really a go-getter and realizes what it takes to win and wins.
Yeah. So now what is your big mission now at Arbitrum? You're telling me, hey, we were not in the meme game, but like, guess what? We're launching a meme chain around Arbitrum Orbit. Right?
Yeah, that's funny. We are launching chains. That's kind of the main thing that we do at Arbitrum Orbit. So in 2024, like we started the product with Zai, which was like the first gaming chain. Had a massive airdrop like early 2024. From there, that was like the first Orbit chain. Then we had this kind of Cambrian explosion. In 2024, of course, as you guys probably know, like there's like the whole modular narrative and like, rollup, everything needed to be a chain. And we saw like this massive expansion of like the number of chains that were launching. Everything was a rollup, right? Everything was an L2. We kind of rode that wave a little bit. We went from about 0 to like hundreds of chains in the pipeline. I think now we're almost, I don't know what the public number is, but like maybe like 50 something chains. And now, so that was kind of like 2024. Now I think what we're seeing in the market is a lot more consolidation around like chains that have clear use cases. I think back people were kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what would stick and being like, oh, maybe like a bunch of people will be able to build an ecosystem around this. But to be honest, launching a chain is somewhat tough if you don't have like a clear plan for it, because you don't get all the things out of the box that you would with like Arbitrum One, right? You don't get like all the on ramps, off ramps, wallet infra, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a ton of infra that's already built into a public chain and a ton of liquidity that's already there. Yeah. All of that you have to source and implement yourself on your own chain. So it's not for the faint of heart, but if you can pull it off, it can be really, really, really great. There's this dude called like OX pseudo GM who's like some anon researcher at Dragonfly. He has this tweet where I think I might be misquoting him, but basically says like the three biggest businesses in crypto are like a stable coin, a blockchain, and an exchange. Yeah. And I think he said if you could find a company that's doing one of them, like that's great. If you find two or more, like hold on to that for dear life. Yeah. So I think Base does a great job at this, right? Like they have the chain, they got the exchange, they have the stable coin. It's like the trifecta. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's cool to see a bunch of people like now launch chains, and like we're seeing a lot. We've seen like a lot of the winners, we've seen a lot of the losers, we've seen chains die, we've seen chains be super successful. And now what we're seeing in the market is like a lot of people are using chains as essentially it's like the final boss of crypto, right? It's like, okay, now once we've like made an app that's like so big or so valuable that we're sucking up a shit ton of gas, paying a ton of gas fees, and all this liquidity is not our liquidity that we can earn on. It belongs to the chain, whether that's, Arb, Solana, whatever. It's one of those things where people are like, oh, I want to control more of my economics and I want to create the best user experience. You can customize the shit out of it. At least on Arbitrum Orbit, it's the most customizable stack. Yeah. So, like for example, we just did Athena and Securitize's chain. Converge chain recently announced with the Arbitrum stack, and so they're able to have Celestia data availability, which like basically no other stack can provide. They have like 50. They're going to do 50 millisecond blocks. Oh wow! Which is like I think super fast. It's fast as hell. I think that like the next closest is like Base was trying to get to like 250 or 100 or something like that. And then if you look at stacks, like I think OP stack is like 2 seconds out of the box. Yeah. And Orbit goes down to like, so it's like 20x, which makes it's great for DeFi, right? Because like your Oracle reads are faster. You can, you're approaching TradFi numbers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get it. So basically what we're seeing now is that it's now like TradFi fintechs folks that are like now I want to enter the space, and like for them, they can enter a space. Maybe, we've seen a bunch of folks do it. Like we've seen Benji do like their tokenized money market fund from Frank and Templeton. Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's awesome. If you want to, but that's like one play, right? If you want to have a multi-chain product and you want to have like something that has adoption across all the different L2s and L1 environments, that's amazing. But sometimes, like for example, Athena's case, they have the USD stablecoin. They want to build like an entire ecosystem around that stablecoin, like payments, DeFi, and all the stuff that a stablecoin can do. the best way to do that and have great UX and is on a customized chain. Right?
Yeah.
That's really the only way to do that. I mean, it's really the only way to do that, period.
It's kind of funny. Like I'm sorry, go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say, I do want to kind of dig into a little bit more about kind of like the chain environment and what it takes to do that. But before we do that, we should probably take a quick break and hear from our sponsors.
Yes.
All right. So we are back. So Vishnu, definitely want to hear more about kind of what it takes to kind of build one of these chains, right? So obviously, like you were just saying, the user has that choice of, okay, do you want to use your Arbitrum 1 or do you need something of your own? But if let's say they did make that case, they have enough activity in whatever their DApp is, what does building that look like with Arbitrum?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the stack is, so we are kind of like Microsoft, and then we work with channel partners, distribution partners, which are rollup as a service providers, to distribute the technology. Essentially, it's like we're Microsoft and they're Dell, and we kind of provide the OS and then they implement it into the final product. And so we work really closely with all the RaaS partners that are in the space, and they're sort of our distribution channels. It's like three legs of a stool, kind of like they help on the technical implementation. Anything they can't figure out, they come to us. And then we help on like using the Arbitrum brand, using the Arbitrum distribution for helping them get their mainnet up, testnet up, liquidity, etc. Basically any of the things you need to set up a chain. There's a lot of things. Touching on your question, Luke, there's a lot. It's kind of a process, so you have to really be committed to it. The main things is you'll want to have a really good RaaS partner. I recommend, chatting with all of them. If anyone's thinking about launching a chain, just hit me up on Telegram at VGK Files. I'll take care of you. But basically, you'd want to chat with all our RaaS partners and see which one's the best fit for you. We work with about like 5 main ones, and we have about like 8 or 10 that maybe support the stack. Basically, you'd want to choose your RaaS partner. That's probably like the biggest decision. Mm-hmm. After that, you want to choose your DA layer. Like, is that going to be Ethereum, which is the most expensive, or we have a DA layer built in? You could use Celestia or Eigen or Avail, whatever. Then you kind of want to figure out like what's your liquidity onboarding plan. You want to get integrations with bridges. You want to make sure that you have like incentives for people to migrate liquidity over. Kind of like it's sort of like building a DApp on an order of magnitude larger, but you kind of run the same playbook, right? Like how do we incentivize people to bring liquidity? How do we build use cases for on the chain that's like dApps? Back in the day in 2024, we're seeing people just YOLO launch chains. Yeah. They're like, the dApps will come.
You're like, good luck, guys.
I think it's rare where that actually happened. So like now we're seeing a lot of folks be like, okay, what's ecosystem of dApps they're going to launch with? So that's really important. You also want to make sure, if you have a token launch or anything like that, you want to think through where you want to launch that token, how you're going to bring liquidity onto your chain. Of course, there's a bunch of things that go into managing a token, SEX integrations, market makers, etc. What else? I think you also will probably want to make sure that you have your own like app built out, and like any sort of like security audits. Like the stack is also like built. Like we do audits on the stack all the time. Trail of Bits is constantly auditing all our releases. But if there's anything custom you guys build, you'd probably want to like get that checked out. That's basically it. It's like, figure out what the use case is. That's like the biggest thing that a lot of people overlook, and make sure that like if you have that done, it's going to be like 80% of the work's done. Once you get that figured out, like it's somewhat smooth sailing from there. We have like a pretty tried and true process. We have like, 50 plus chains that have now launched to mainnet and like hundreds more in the pipeline. So you're not like deploying some random stack that no one's used. It's like the biggest players are exploring the stack and using the stack already. So it should be pretty smooth sailing. You're not going to be like Zai, like guinea pigging the stack. We kind of dogfooded that. The funny story about Zai is that they're the only team that doesn't use a RaaS for the most part, because they're the first chain, so we're the RaaS. So we basically run the rollup. So that's a bit of lore for you guys.
Yeah. So like, who's your infrastructure provider? The same people who provided the entire stack. The guys who built the chain are basically running all the infra now. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I think we're really excited to see. I think in 2024, 2025, what I'm excited about is seeing like RWAs are hot right now, as you guys probably know. I think Arbitrum is really positioned well for that narrative. We've killed it in DeFi. We have like a lot of good Fintech partnerships in place already. We have a partnership with Robinhood Wallet. We've worked with Reddit. We have the Athena chain that recently launched. All the big. We have like Benjamin, Franklin Templeton.
Yeah.
Basically a bunch of these guys. We have BlackRock's US. What is it?
Ondo. Ondo's is their own.
Ondo, yeah. but Ondas isn't ours. They're doing their own thing, but there's BlackRock's Biddle. So that's a big one too. Anyway, TLDR is we're positioned well, and I'm excited to see more folks in the space come in and make their own chains. I'll give you guys some alpha on like what these guys are looking at.
Yeah.
Basically, I think the biggest thing is like now finance generally is waking up to crypto, and they're like, oh, like we have these Swift corridors that are super expensive. And like, I heard this is like super like back of the hand, but I heard something about how when Venmo and PayPal, even though they're the same company, need to send money. If you send money from Venmo to PayPal, it goes outside of PayPal and then goes back into Venmo and goes through like it loops around the financial system, the financial plumbing of the world.
Interesting.
I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but that kind of just shows to you like what sort of inefficiencies. It's super legacy systems. Like there's like settlement across multiple entities. There's tons of counterparty risk, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of these folks are waking up and saying, oh, instead of doing all that, I'll just have my own internal blockchain or external blockchain that can then handle all the settlement, instant settlement, 24-hour trading. I can tokenize RWAs and get liquidity for them that would never have access to this before. So it's a win-win, right? You get more liquidity for the asset, and then you have people across the world who would never be able to build wealth by putting their money in this kind of thing. So it's really, really cool to see what folks are looking to build with this kind of stuff. I think tokenization is a big one. That's a big use case. An interior, like kind of like internal operations chains, like orchestration layers, ops chains, that kind of makes a lot of sense for fintechs. I think they all kind of like have the thing that's interesting is that they all have their own like use case for it. That's a thing that is different from like the previous generation of chains is like every single, like you'd see one chain hit and then you're like, there's like 100 chains that all want to do that. Now you're seeing each and maybe it makes sense because each like fintech or FI is like in a different place, but they all have like their own kind of like specific use case.
Yeah, there's like nuances. So like the crosstalk functionality or the Babel phishing makes a lot of sense, right? It's kind of like how bridges like effectively worked, but you need to like basically drill down into like why that crosstalk would work between like one of these 50 chains that are launching. That might be interesting, right? That interop. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like everyone wants to launch a stablecoin. It's been the hottest thing for the last like year. RWAs are huge. Getting instrumentation and getting banking on here from like if you're a legacy kind of bank or a bank on chain is basically the model that they're all trying to go to. So that's why you have to launch a stable first. Yeah. You're like, I want to be basically like a boutique bank, and you're going to put it on chain and you're going to launch a stable, and then you're going to have other kind of financial instrumentation. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
basically a global bank, and you're able to speed run all the bullshit that comes with being a bank.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting, especially since you guys have like you're going into the RaaS and like the technology stack business. Like, I think that once again, it's kind of like you are taking that Gitcoin thing from the very beginning where you were looking at so many different things, and now you're looking at so many different chains and so many different products, and you're trying to find the nuances of this product and like trying to like piecemeal like, hey, this is where you need to go to like really make this vision come true. And I mean, it seems like this is a perfect role going from your Gitcoin days to where you are right now.
Yeah, it's great. Also, I think another thing is like the product side helps a lot. Like and like the founder experience helps a lot. Is just being able to execute across like, okay, you're given this project, figure out like the technical scope, and like figure out if it makes sense from a business side, then execute on it with like the product team or the engineering team, and then do the commercial agreement and like announce it. And it's like kind of like that full life cycle. So it's cool. I love working with the product team. Like I feel like I would be definitely less happy if I didn't have interactions with like the product side coming with from like the engineering background.
Yeah. We were literally talking about this earlier about an opportunity actually that Luke was talking about where he was like, hey, what do you think about this role? And I'm like, yeah, the only way to be really successful at that role is to manage these two worlds, right? You have to manage the growth aspect of things and then also like talking to the product aspect of things and really make that sync if you really want to make a huge impact, right? And I agree. If you can like straddle both those worlds, that's where you feel like I really feel like an Archimedial lever is what I have. You can make huge impact.
Yeah. It's funny that you say lever. I like, I'm super Naval fanboy. In 2020, I literally took notes on his how to get rich without getting lucky tweets going on his blog and podcast, and like tried to like synthesize out checklists and implement them and all that. I really went hard on it. And the kind of like the mental model here is The thing that that made me go into like the strategy go to market side is Naval's thing where he said, learn to build, learn to sell, and you can do anything. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the North Star.
Yeah. He has a really good book that's just a compilation of all those tweets that I have. And
Almanac, right?
Yeah. And so I use this. So I read it on my Kindle, and if you highlight everything, you can put it in I use Readwise. Yeah. So every morning it just emails me, and apparently I highlighted his book a ton because I get those all the time.
Yeah. So every once in a while you have one of those books where you just highlight everything, and you're like, holy shit, I really got to break this down after.
Yeah.
If you're into this type of thing, like I'm happy to share some alpha on how I like to take notes. It's hard to find signal in the crypto space.
Yeah.
This is going to go super deep into the weeds, but a few people are going to love it. Basically, start with just sourcing shit from Twitter or blogs or whatever. Save it on Readwise, and then I'll highlight everything, and then that gets pulled into Obsidian Notes, which is like a two-way. It's just like a fancy note-taking system. Put it in Apple Notes for all you care. It doesn't matter. I think people get super hyped into what the specific tool is. There's that.
Use a Post-it for all I fucking care.
Yeah, exactly. I don't give a shit. Write it on your wall, but do it, right? But basically take notes on that, and then I'll synthesize out the ideas, the atomic ideas from it. Okay, this is an idea, this is an idea. And then each of these become idea Legos. And then I look at all these, they're almost like index card level, not super long. And then basically you look at all these in mass, and then you're start to look at the patterns and see where the patterns come through. The system's from Nicholas Luhmann. He's this OG sociologist, German sociologist. He had this whole room of all index cards where he would take down ideas, and then had this crazy index card vault. And the cool thing is, because each idea is atomic, it can be used in multiple places. So this thesis can also impact this downstream thesis, and this downstream thesis, and this downstream thesis. So it's kind of it's composability for ideas.
Yeah, it's modular idea Legos, right? It's like DA for Legos, right? Or ideas, right? I like it. That's smart.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. So I feel like you kind of just got my mind thinking about okay, I use my things, but that's not brilliant how you just can kind of compose them later on and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, if you guys really want to dive in, there's this thing called Zettelkasten, which is the idea behind this.
Okay.
You were in Germany, right?
Yeah.
You did your master's there?
Yes.
But basically, he was a German dude. The idea is called Zettelkasten. It's called Slipbox. Zettel means I guess slip or index card.
Okay.
And then Kasten is box. And it's it's an idea box. A lot of people did this in history, Marcus Aurelius and Julius Caesar, and a bunch of people had these commonplace books, quote unquote, where they'd write down all their ideas, and over time they'd start to see the signal through the noise. And so if you're interested, look up Zettelkasten, Zettelkasten. There's a whole subculture in the internet around this.
Shit, definitely got to check that out. Yeah, for me, it's the thing that I use is because just focusing on my stuff, but then also meeting and talking to so many different people. I put it up on the whiteboard. So the whiteboard, it's just it changed Post-its for me, because now I don't have a fucking stationary budget like a madman. It's why are you spending $200 on fucking Post-its a month? It's have you seen my fucking studio? Yeah. It's just Post-its everywhere. And it's just so instead we put up this huge whiteboard, and we have this dry erase wall in the workspace. And it's if it's on the other side, and I put everything on there. And anything crazy, and even a random idea just stays up there. Yeah. And then later on, the way I think about it is it gets 1 year to be up there. And if it's not used within a year, I scratch it off. And it's just a concept or an atomic idea, or literally a phrase. It could be for our startup, I thought about remove the neural threshold to understanding instrumentation and then usability of products. So I was and I love using the word retard very much, right? That's how Tardfi came about. And I just put up Tardfi or retards. And I was that's kind of what we're shipping. And in a weird way, it became this kind of North Star. There's retarded North Star for us to be oh, this is kind of our way of thinking about this.
Right.
But it's built around this idea of simplifying instrumentation and making it palatable to people that otherwise would not understand instrumentation that's overtly complex.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't use, I do like to read a lot, but and I prefer paper books a lot, even though I have a Kindle. Like, but yeah, generally the whiteboard is my place. It's like, yeah, it just looks like a psychiatric ward.
Always Sunny meme with like all the lines.
It's just me, the Rat King, in like the basement with like lines going everywhere, and that's really what it is. But yeah,
I am very jealous of your whiteboard though. So whenever we do record the podcast remote, it's not on the show because we don't do video anymore, but I do get to sometimes peek at it, and it's just like that is a huge whiteboard. I wish I had one. The room I'm do my stuff in doesn't have one, but it's very nice. Something about seeing it all at once is really nice. So like I keep most of it in like a journal, or I keep some of it in Notion and things like that, but having the ability to kind of just have that overall view of it, it's really nice.
Yeah, on the whiteboard, I never put up to-do tasks. I actually just put it up like on a piece of paper. I'll write down to-do tasks because then I'm like, oh, it's tangible and it's like right here, and it's just like mocking me. Like, hey, you fucking failure. You just only did the 7 tasks. What about the balance 4 over here? Don't be a bitch. Get back to work.
Yeah.
You know, like, but like on the board, that's where I put up all the schemas, all like how and what things will work, concepts that are there. There's like the entire right side of that board that you never see on the pod. There's like probably like 70 ideas there for startups.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, yeah. When I talk to other founders and stuff like that, they're like, even as an advisor or like just like literally talking to other founders, they're like, oh, what do you think about this? I'm like, well, why don't you think about this? And they're like, how did you think of that? I'm like, because it's been on the fucking board here for like the last like 6 months. Nice. You're more than welcome to operate on this anytime you want. But yeah, I do love this idea of like curating and then keeping the ideas as a visual medium and then coming back to them from time to time, because it can really like, it's a way for you to sharpen your own thoughts and concepts and test your own like thesis in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to test your own theses. That way, it kind of reminds me of Richard Feynman. He had this thing like the 12 biggest questions that were important to him. And basically because he's already thought about these questions, the thing that made him a genius is what he would say is like, people think I'm a genius, but all I do is have really clear questions. And then every single time I learn a new piece of information, I filter against one of those 12 questions. Every once in a while, I'll get a hit. And then that'll help me move that forward. So I think that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about that. I got to go look at that. Isn't he the guy that the QEDs thing or whatever?
He's like he's like an OG physicist,
right? Yeah, he had this book called QED or something like that. It's on the library or something like that. I gotta go check that out sometime again.
Yeah. QED, that's like the end of the proof.
Yeah. So I definitely gotta go check that out. Good point, man.
Yeah.
It's a high tidbit right there.
Yeah, that's alpha.
Yeah. But dude, I gotta say, this is great. Yeah. I know we're pushing up on time here. And yeah, man, like how do people find you? How do people learn more about Orbit, like learn more about you? And, you know, any last wishes in terms of like getting people to come in, and then whether it's Orbit or you, or some final thoughts you want to like leave people on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Happy to chat with anyone who's interested about Orbit or personal stuff as well. Just hit me on Telegram at VGK Files, Files. That's also my Twitter if you want to reach me there. Telegram and Twitter are both great. Just hit me up.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, Vishnu, this has been awesome. So both learning about what you're doing with Arbitrum, your background, and some great productivity tips as well. So this has been great. We'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Luke.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the ATX DAO Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. To learn more about ATX DAO, visit us at atxdao.com and follow us on X, Farcaster, and LinkedIn at ATX DAO. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.